If you've ever felt powerless during daily struggles with your toddler, this video will finally explain what's missing and how small changes in trust and responsibility can make parenting feel surprisingly easier. You will leave with a deeper understanding, not just of behavior, but of how to guide your child toward real growth. There is a moment most parents do not talk about out loud because it feels uncomfortable admitting it. It is that split second after your child melts down for the 5th time today, when you are standing there wondering how someone so small can drain so much energy. You replay the day in your head, trying to figure out where it went wrong, wondering if you were too soft earlier or too firm later, questioning whether you are doing something fundamentally wrong. You love your child deeply, yet somehow every simple request turns into a negotiation, a standoff, or a full emotional collapse. And what makes it worse is that none of this feels logical. You have explained things calmly, you have offered choices, you have modeled patience, and you have read enough parenting advice to last a lifetime. Still, your toddler fights putting on shoes like it is an attack on their freedom, resists cleaning up like it is punishment, and reacts to small frustrations with outsized emotion. It leaves you confused, not because you do not care, but because caring does not seem to be enough. Most parents assume this means their child is testing boundaries or struggling with emotional regulation. That assumption sounds reasonable, and sometimes it's partially true, but it misses something deeper that rarely gets discussed. Because toddlers don't just crave comfort and safety, they crave agency, purpose, and a sense that they matter within the world they live in. When that need isn't met, it doesn't show up as polite requests or thoughtful conversations. It shows up as resistance. The tricky part is that modern parenting unintentionally trains us to interpret resistance as misbehavior rather than communication. We see defiance where there is actually frustration, and stubbornness where there is unmet capability waiting to be used. So we respond the way we've been taught to respond, by tightening control, offering more explanations, or stepping in faster to keep things moving smoothly. That feels helpful in the moment, but over time it quietly erodes something essential inside the child. This is where a surprising contrast begins to matter more than it first appears. Because while many parents feel stuck in this exhausting loop, there are entire cultures where toddlers are trusted with responsibility far earlier than feels comfortable to most of us. Germany is one of those places, and the difference is not about being stricter or colder or less emotionally connected. It is about a fundamentally different understanding of what responsibility actually does to a child's developing mind. In Germany, it is common to see young children participating in everyday life in ways that feel startling to outsiders. Toddlers help prepare meals with real tools, not plastic toys, designed to mimic usefulness without risk. Young children walk short distances independently, manage small routines themselves, and are expected to contribute to shared spaces. To many parents watching from the outside, this looks dangerous, irresponsible, or unnecessarily stressful. But here's the part most people misunderstand. German parents are not giving children responsibility because they believe children should behave like miniature adults. They give responsibility because they understand something subtle and powerful about how behavior actually develops. They know responsibility does not follow maturity. It creates maturity. When a child is trusted with real responsibility, something inside them shifts. They no longer feel like passive participants, moved through their day by someone else's agenda. They begin to experience themselves as capable contributors, whose actions have meaning beyond immediate approval or punishment. That experience changes how they relate to rules, authority, and even their own emotions. Most parenting struggles don't come from children wanting to break rules. They come from children wanting to feel in control of something in their lives. When every decision is made for them, when every problem is solved before they can struggle with it, and when every task is done faster by an adult, children lose opportunities to build internal control. And without internal control, External control becomes a constant battle. This is where many parents accidentally create the very behavior they're trying to prevent. Out of love, we rush to help, to fix, to smooth things over, and to remove frustration before it escalates. Frustration is not the enemy of development, and avoiding it entirely leaves children without practice navigating discomfort. Without that practice, even small obstacles feel overwhelming. In contrast, responsibility gives children something discipline never can. It gives them ownership. Ownership transforms how the brain handles emotion, impulse, and decision-making. Instead of reacting to instructions, the child begins anticipating outcomes. Instead of resisting requests, the child starts noticing how their actions affect others. That shift doesn't happen because someone explained it well, but because the child lived it repeatedly. What looks like independence from the outside is actually deep neurological training happening through everyday life. Each time a child completes a task, makes a choice, or experiences a natural consequence, their executive function strengthens. This part of the brain governs self-regulation, planning, emotional control, and problem-solving. It is the foundation of responsibility, and it only develops through use. This is why German early education often emphasizes participation over performance. Children aren't rushed into academic benchmarks at the expense of social competence and autonomy. They're encouraged to engage with their environment, contribute to their community, and solve small problems independently. That approach builds confidence not through praise, but through lived capability. When children feel capable, they behave differently. They don't need to assert control through defiance, because they already have control within appropriate boundaries. They don't collapse emotionally at every obstacle, because they've learned that frustration is survivable. They don't rely on constant validation, because their sense of worth comes from contribution, not approval. This is where many parents feel an unexpected wave of relief, because it reframes toddler behavior in a way that removes blame from both parent and child. The tantrums, the resistance, and the constant pushback are not signs of failure or poor discipline. They are signals that the child is ready for more responsibility than they're being given. That realization can feel uncomfortable at first. It challenges the instinct to protect, to guide closely, and to stay constantly involved. But responsibility doesn't mean abandonment, and trust doesn't mean absence. It means stepping back just enough to let the child step forward. There is an important distinction that must be made here, because responsibility is often misunderstood. Healthy responsibility supports growth, while unhealthy responsibility creates stress and anxiety. The difference lies in age appropriateness, emotional support, and the absence of adult role replacement. Children should contribute, not compensate for adults. German parenting culture generally respects this boundary clearly. Children are expected to help and participate, but adults remain responsible for emotional safety and structure. This balance allows responsibility to build confidence rather than pressure. It teaches children they are capable without burdening them with adult expectations. When parents adopt this mindset, something subtle but powerful changes in daily life. Requests turn into shared routines rather than commands. Mistakes become learning moments rather than behavioral failures. And cooperation grows naturally because the child feels invested in outcomes. The most profound shift happens internally for the parent. Instead of asking how to control behavior, the question becomes how to invite responsibility. Instead of focusing on compliance, the focus shifts toward competence. That change reduces stress for everyone involved. Over time, the results compound in ways that surprise many parents. Children become more self-directed, more emotionally stable, and more confident in their abilities. They still have big feelings, but those feelings don't dominate every interaction. They still test limits, but those tests feel less adversarial and more exploratory. The behavior you once worried about begins to soften, Not because you enforced better rules, but because your child no longer needs to fight for agency. They already have a place in the system of daily life. They already know they matter. And that knowledge is calming in ways no consequence ever could be. This is the moment where confusion finally turns into clarity. The struggle was never about obedience or discipline or even emotional regulation. It was about responsibility arriving too late instead of arriving early. Once that clicks, parenting stops feeling like constant damage control. If there's one thing to carry forward after watching this, let it be this understanding. Children don't become responsible after they behave well. They behave better after they feel responsible. Start small, stay patient, and trust that your child is more capable than they appear in moments of frustration. Because every opportunity to contribute is an opportunity to grow. If this perspective shifted how you see your child even slightly, the next video will take this idea further and show exactly how responsibility changes emotional regulation over time. Watch that next, because it connects directly to everything you just learned, and it may answer questions you have not even formed yet.